This is the big story. I mean, look, we got a lot of news today, but I think this is the most alarming as per how our society functions. From the Daily Mail. Vigilantes show up to evict squatters at Queen's home where owner was arrested as neighbors reveal 3 people have been living there for free and carrying out work inside. And the update from the Post-Millennial, 2 squatters vacate Queen's home after national backlash. One says he's staying. I'll tell you what I think happens. So we get this breaking news that vigilantes show up to this house. I'll give you the quick context for those that missed this story. Woman in New York, her parents die. She inherits their home and she says, I'm going to sell it. When she shows up to actually check on it, some people have moved in, changed the locks. When she calls the police say to these squatters, can you prove you live here? And when they can't, the police remove the men. The woman then goes to change the locks, but the police say, if you change the locks, we will arrest you. Don't do it. Even though it's her home and those guys have no proof they live there. She changes the locks. It's her house. The cops then come up. Before that, this guy breaks back in the house. The cops then show back up and arrest the homeowner for unlawful eviction. The squatters stay and say, take me to court. Next thing that happens is exactly what we warned was going to happen. Some guys show up and they said to the press, look, we're just going to talk to him. We're just going to talk to him. I wonder what they talked about. Because soon after, these guys split. Not all of them. One guy's on camera being like, I don't know who I paid rent to, but I paid rent, so I live here. And he just seems confused. And then
that's the guy who wants his deposit back before
right.
he'll leave.
They were like, yeah, so you paid the squatters? And he's like, I guess. I don't know. And he's like some old guy with like missing teeth. I'll tell you what I think happened. What's going to start happening now more than ever, especially with what we're seeing with the Daniel Penny case and Daniel Perry in Texas. And now we've got a bunch of other stories I can pull up from the past couple of weeks of vigilante action in New York City. This is it. It is the rise of vigilantism because of the crime spike and because of bail reform. I mean, I didn't even mention this in the opening of the show, but Anna Kasparian says if being on the left means supporting bail reform, which lets murderers out of jail, then she's not on the left anymore. And Jenk's like, no, it's not true. And she's like, well, I don't know, because they let out murderers in New York. They find these people. They find body parts scattered all over the place. They find these people living in a house with blood, guts, and flesh everywhere. And they say, we're not going to keep him in jail. We're going to let him go. And so she's losing it. But I'll tell you what I think happens here in this story. We'll get to that one. You know what would happen if these squatters stayed in the building? When 2 guys show up and knock on your door and say, we're going to tell you one time, you need to leave. That's all they're going to say. Not going to say anything else. And what happens next? These squatters will wake up in the middle of the night with a tap on their shoulder. And as soon as they open their eyes, there's going to be 2 or 3 guys in ski masks. And one guy's just going to rain a crowbar down on his kneecap. Smack! And then the squatter's going to scream and they're going to say, you've been warned. And they're going to leave. And when the cops show up, if they show up, the neighbors are all going to say, we didn't see anything. That's where we're heading because of the laws they're passing, because the police are defending the criminals. And now you got this crazy story, which we'll get into as well in a minute, of the illegal immigrant criminal alien saying, here's how you steal homes from people in America, land invasion.
That one's particularly disturbing because of the way he was saying it, in my opinion. He was angry.
Serious. And he was serious about it. He was like, this is how we go get places to live in the U.S. We just steal them.
That video's worth watching. That's nuts.
When civilizations stop respecting property rights, this is what you get. I mean, yeah, you got to move your mic over.
You can't hear what you're saying.
You mumbled the most amazing thing, Serge. What was it?
I thought you were going to keep saying that, but I said it last night. Exactly. So when you said it, I was like, yeah, I said exactly the same thing last night. Property rights. And Phil talked about it too, property rights. Once they go, like everything falls apart.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And in that void, what arises? Well, mafiosos, people that will come in and they will enforce property rights on behalf of the citizens. And that is the only just way of dealing with property, is that you have to have some sort of chain of title. If you're going to totally disavow and disrespect that in the state of New York, well, then you're going to see the rise of mafia again.
Let's be real. All these flash mob burglaries and robberies that we're seeing would not happen if the mafia still existed the way it did, back in the day. Capone, for instance. At least the narrative we think we know about the mafia. When a couple local guys show up to your little grocery store and they say, it's time to pay us our protection money. And that's viewed so negatively in like movie tropes. It's like, oh no, they're shaking me down. And if you don't pay, they smash things up. I'll tell you this, I wouldn't want to live that way. I don't know if anybody would want to live that way. You want to live in a world where when someone comes and threatens your business, the cops are there in a moment's notice and they deal with it. And we have the right to defend ourselves while we're waiting for them. Like that guy in New York, they're trying to kill him. the bodega owner. And then when he wrestles the knife away and stabs back, they lock him up.
Yeah, they didn't.
My point, real quick, if we still lived in that world where the mob guys came down, went to this bodega, went to this department store and said, pay us our protection money, these roving bands of criminal gangs wouldn't exist. The moment any one group of kids or young men or whatever went to rob a store, they'd wake up in the middle of the night, there'd be two guys in ski masks, they'd tap them on the shoulder, and there'd be a crack with a crowbar in their kneecap, and they'd say, you don't steal from us. See, the organized crime wants to keep everything in line so they can keep the money flowing. These roving gangs are destroying the system all around them. So it's barbarism versus conquest. The mafia strategy was, we're going to own the territory. You keep working because I want money next week. What we're seeing now is barbarism, which is loot, pillage, burn.
Well, and it's what we're seeing in a lot of places that are, spilling refugees out into the U.S. We're seeing that in Haiti. The capital is completely under siege. Basically, you have government officials resigning because they can't maintain any control over the population. But the thing with the squatters, and we've seen this in a couple of places. We've seen it in LA, we've seen it in Atlanta, Philadelphia. We've seen this, across the board. Squatters break into a house in Florida and they just live there. And when the person gets back, they have absolutely no rights to their own property. I find that as a property owner, albeit a recent one, really terrifying. Like, I don't want people in my house.
It shouldn't be this way, but what everyone keeps saying is you just have to use the law as the law stands, which would be, if you find a squatter in your house, you draft up a work agreement for the squatter. You then sign a lease for your friend, and then your friend calls the cops and says, the guy who works here evicted me illegally. And then what happens is the squatter becomes a worker for you, and you can say, yeah, look, I have a work arrangement with him. Here's my paper.
But here's the reality.
That seems wacky.
I know, but like, this is the problem. This is how society breaks down.
Exactly.
Because people think, if I am moral and correct, the police will have my back. I'm a good person. And the cops say, I don't care. Right. I don't care who you think you are.
That's the thing people forget when they call the police. I remember this Australian woman who was shot to death by police, I think in Chicago a couple of years ago, when she called police because she thought someone was breaking into the house, and then the police showed up and they shot her to death. But like, that's what everyone forgets. When you call police, they don't know who the good guy and the bad guy is. They just know that there's some people and there's a situation, and they're there to protect themselves for the most part. And so they look at everybody like they're a criminal. This is like, how they talk about, have the conversation with your kids about the cops. That's the conversation I had with my kid about the cops. Don't call the cops unless you're prepared to get shot by the cops.
I think that the mistake is in perceiving the state and the mafia to be significantly different. I mean, what is the same sort of extortion fee that you pay to the mafia to lend your business protection? You pay property taxes, you pay local taxes. Like, it's still contractual.
And the mafia is not there anymore.
Right, but they've left because the state became so powerful that they were the biggest gang in town. Now the state, even though it's extraordinarily powerful, it's still deteriorating in its ability to protect property rights. Therefore, you will see people turn back to, organized crime to defend their property. Isn't
the real reason that we lost organized crime because of the RICO Act and Rudy Giuliani? Like, it's not.
It can be argued that, but what is that? That's an extraordinarily powerful gang itself. It just became so much more powerful. It was able to lock up the smaller gang. That's honestly my perception of the state versus mafia. It's a monopoly on violence. You either cede the monopoly on violence towards the state, or you turn towards organized crime. I don't see it as being distinctly different because I still don't have an option to opt out if I want to protect my property.
So you're saying it's Rudy Giuliani's fault that all this crime is happening?
No, I'm saying he fixed New York as usual.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
You'd rely on local cops ideally, so you don't have some organized state.
Well, yes, the
protection.
The lowest level monopoly on violence is preferable to the highest level for sure, which is why I lean towards Texas when it comes to the border dispute versus the feds, who have completely abdicated their duty.
I'm trying to wrap my mind around property rights and the evolution of property rights in the United States. I imagine when this country began, it was like, get off my lawn. I mean, it was just like, shoot first, don't ask questions, basically, when there was like the frontier. Your property rights were, I have a gun, basically. So how did it evolve into like, I'm safe now because my property is protected by the government?
I think it's a cultural framework. But yeah, I mean, Lockean property rights is kind of where the concept comes from. America was obviously very special. I think this is what people really need to understand, is that what made America the wealthiest country on earth, primarily above everything else, above our military might and everything else, was the fact that we honored property rights. And when you are an investor, which I was a money manager for 15 years, the biggest thing you're looking for is obviously above and beyond return on investment is security of your investment. And if you don't have that, you're not going to deploy any capital. It freezes up the market.
New York is a perfect example. Kevin O'Leary won't shut up about it. But I agree with him. I'm just saying this man is pissed.
Well, the reason he's pissed is because he understands this is existential to his business. He is a real estate investor. He is a investor in businesses. If you don't have clean chain of title and enforcement of property rights, you do not have your wealth. It is the end of the capitalist model.
We have no choice right now but to start seeking out a Plan B secondary coffee distributor. Cast Brew is our distributor is based in not in New York City, kind of maybe like an hour outside or around in the metro, but in the suburbs in a very moderate area. The guy who owns it's super cool. They're great. They're anti-cancel culture. They're good people. But that doesn't even mean anything. At any moment, New York has stated they will seize the assets of any business that dare oppose them. And so, I'm talking with the team and I'm like, do we just say it's going to be fine, nothing's going to happen, and then one day Casper's shut down and we're on a 1-year hiatus where we have no coffee production? Or do we start looking for reserve distributors who can pick up our formulas and start, helping distribute our product for us in the event that New York makes this move, which I got to be honest, it's not even about, I don't think that New York goes to our coffee company. It's a lottery ticket's chance. What I think happens is New York passes a law which puts a boot down on all of the businesses and then creates a very serious problem. You look at what they're already doing. They might put a morality bill or something. Hate speech. Who knows?
They could do any of that.
And then there's going to be a tax or a levy or some ridiculous attack on the business. So it's just like, I don't know what's coming. All I know is we have no choice now because of what New York is doing, New York State, with, I'll keep it as simple as I can. New York is a communist state. I don't like the word communism because it's archaic and we're dealing with something kind of different, but rooted in, so you can call it neo-communist or neocom or something, but there needs to be a new word for what it is.
Anarcho-tyrannical communism.
It's exactly how communism functioned.
Yeah, it's abolition of property rights.
Well, but you need loyalty to the state.
Solzhenitsyn wrote about this.
If you don't have loyalty to the
what's
state.
What's happening with crime and with property is exactly what Solzhenitsyn wrote about. And so the issue now with New York is the state has decided arbitrarily they can take from whoever they want. They can do whatever they want. There are no rules. Nothing applies to them.
Yes.
I hope Trump gets elected, and I hope Trump sends in the feds and just occupies New York.
Well, I can't go with that direction because I'm still a states' rights guy, and I think that New York has every right to deteriorate right before our eyes. But obviously,
that is incorrect. They have an obligation to uphold the Constitution of this country and adhere to the supreme law of the land, which they're not doing. Well, when a state, it's like.
If that's the case, then Texas can't enforce the border because it's the feds that have taken that duty on. I go the other route where I say decentralized authority, allow the states to compete. Innovation.
That's actually incorrect because the 9th and 10th Amendment protect Texas's right to defend itself in the and I believe.
How has that worked out for us so far, Tim?
It doesn't matter how it works out for us. What matters is Texas has the absolute right to defend itself when the federal government is derelict. They're not imposing themselves against the rights of their citizens. New York is attacking the constitutional rights of American citizens. That is a rogue state that needs to be brought to heel.
Well, I mean, that is the justification that leads towards civil wars. I am in favor of
if the federal government
divorce.
cannot enforce the Constitution, then there is no United States.
So would it be like they'd reduce funding to New York or something?
They would strip funding, but I think they need to go one step further. I hope Trump gets elected and he appoints someone, maybe Kash Patel, to AG, and then they immediately begin all the criminal probes and inquiries into Letitia James, Engeron, for instance. Letitia James's donation history, all of that stuff. And at the very least, there should be tons of civil rights lawsuits brought against her and all of these other officials in New York City and state. Kathy Hochul, for instance, bringing in National Guard. While in New York, the big story that Anna Kasparian's going on off about, and I completely agree with her, is they found people living in a home with dismembered body parts, and they say, we're not going to put them in jail. You're free to go. Right. Your trial will be at a later date.
Kathy Hochul wasn't even elected. This is nuts.
No, she was the lieutenant governor under Cuomo. So she was elected because we elect the lieutenant governor.
So she was ready to go. She was like the next,
But she
next one in
basically-
line.
She was basically like VP.
Yeah, but like I think that she and Letitia James colluded to oust Cuomo from office. I think it's pretty clear that that's what they did.
Why do you think that?
Because they drummed up all of these, like sex things against him that were basically fake sex things. And then as soon as they pushed him out of office and got Kathy Hochul in there, they dropped all the charges.
Well, can I circle back to your point earlier? Because I think that the real question of our time, honestly, and it's a big one, is have we become so different as a people, culturally and otherwise, that we can still coexist? And do you want to use the federal government to bring these people to heel? Because the reality is that many people in California and New York do not share my values or our values when it comes to upholding the Bill of Rights. I'm not interested in going to war with those people. I'm not. I don't.
So the thing I disagree with you on is I believe America is a country. I believe America exists. I believe that we have a constitution laid forth by our founding fathers, and a great nation was built before our very eyes.
Agreed.
By many people who decided to plant trees whose shade they knew they would never sit beneath.
Indeed.
Now you have communists stripping people of their rights, destroying this country, and it is imperative this country protects itself.
What was
The idea that you would allow an invading force to come in and you'd go, wait. Instead of actually defending our territory, let them have it.
Well, see, this is the difference, Tim. These aren't invaders. These are people that are ideologically
No, they're
invaders. No, I'm talking about the people that come out of academia that believe in communism. These are not invaders. These are people born in America.
Right. And they bring in millions of people who are invaders.
Well, they do that too, yes.
When those invaders give the far leftists additional congressional seats, which is what they're doing.
Indeed.
Between 13 and 17, it is an invading, occupying force
and
that
and
opposes
it's intended on conquest. I agree.
And it is imperative this country brings California and New York to heel.
Should we bring back the fractional value of a human? Like, remember in the Constitution they said that slaves were worth what, 3/4 of a human?
but
So
that
illegal
was-
immigrants counting towards. So in regards to counting them towards delegates to the
No.
But
you don't think so? They don't
this-
even
this-
citizens.
this- so this
because
is-
you're either a citizen or you're not.
This is exactly what the argument was in the Civil War. The South said a slave is a person and should count towards apportionment and voting.
because it gave them more power in the
Exactly.
And then the Democrats said they shouldn't count at all.
Yes.
They're not free sovereign citizens.
Right.
And so they compromised, and the South said, how about this? We count them 3/5. Democrats love having second-class citizens. It's what they do. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.